Hello, my name is Arnie Herz, and welcome to Habits of a Whole Heart, my podcast on the Humanity Matters podcast series on hmTv. Please subscribe. We are now into almost 550 podcast episodes, and I'm very pleased to be with my dear friend, Bernie Furshpan. Bernie, you were my first guest. My first two episodes were with you. You're the one that encouraged me to do this podcast. It was, I believe, almost exactly a year ago that
Probably
we started, and I have now done, I think this is the 47th.
This is your 47th podcast episode.
And you've done 500 and...
Altogether, we have over 30 podcasters. We have a total of maybe 7 to 9 technicians, tech directors. We've got, it takes a village to produce these things, and we've got a wide variety of themes. And some of these podcasters, like yourself, are very prolific. And we'll talk about that. But almost 550 podcast episodes in 1 year. We basically started at the end of February. It took me about 3 months to build this studio.
Wow, that's amazing. And you're doing this, really, you're not getting paid for this. This is volunteer.
Yes, I've been asking for a raise forever.
Well, we'll give you a raise, 20%.
If you can just double my income, my salary, that'll be fine.
Bernie, that's great.
Yeah.
And as a seasoned podcaster, I had to turn my phone off. I realized I still had it on, and to avoid the distractions. So what has this meant for you in reaching this huge? First of all, did you think you'd have over 500 podcast episodes and 30 podcasters?
I had a vision of a family of podcasters. I didn't actually think about any particular number, but I saw like a room full of podcasters. So in my head, maybe it was about 20.
Okay.
I'm happy that there's over 30 now, and we're still building, a team of talent here, and each one is better than the other. Every show is better than the other. It just gets better and more professional, and I think that our podcasters are very excited about the results because I told everybody at first, nobody's going to watch us. We're going to get a few people, straggling in here and there. And before you know it, there's going to be a critical mass that's going to change everything. We're going to reach a certain milestone. And people are going to say, hey, did you happen to see, the podcast at Humanity Matters, hmTV? And people start spreading the good word. And before you know it, every podcast now that we upload to YouTube gets several hundred views almost immediately because we have a larger number of subscribers, anywhere from 500 to 3,000 views per episode. And we do about, I'm going to say, an average of 1 to 2 a day.
Wow.
So if we skip a day, we may have 3 or 4 or even 5 the next day.
Well, you could see if it's been, how long you've been doing this for? About a little
it's a
over
year.
a year.
Yeah, it's a year. It's like the end of February.
Right?
So
and you have 550 episodes, so that's,
speaks
1.5,
volumes.
2 a day. And of course, you're not filming on the weekends.
We are filming on the weekends because the museum is open on the weekends.
I see.
So I have a crew here on Saturdays and Sundays.
Oh, so you've got people coming in there. So the reach, has it exceeded your expectations?
Quite a bit. Hundreds of major cities, major markets around the world. Hundreds. And we will get right now about, I'm going to say 60 to 80,000 views a month on our podcasts. And I believe it's going to double in the next few months and continue to double. So
if you're getting 80 a month, it's almost, $1 million a year?
Oh,
we're getting there.
Sure. Yeah, we're getting there. And somebody said, I don't know if this podcast is going to work. I said, you don't understand marketing. Marketing is all about consistency. Mm-hmm. You have to be consistent. You have to put out a good product, first of all, but you got to be consistent. And that consistency is what turns people's heads. They say, they're still here.
That's interesting because, I got a little frustrated with my podcast at the beginning, and a guy by the name of Bernie Furshpan told me just to be consistent.
Yeah, you should listen
and keep going. And I did, and here I am at episode 47.
Right.
which has exceeded my expectations too. So how did you come up with the name Humanity Matters, and what was the problem or the thing you wanted to bring into the world? What is the core theme behind them all?
Right. So this is a solution to whatever problem exists, right?
Yeah.
Communication is the problem. You know, when you have relationships with people, you need good communication. Without communication, there's no relationship. So we need to have a better relationship with society and the way we educate society and the way we disseminate information and education. Some of your podcasts are some of the best podcasts we have on the platform. I mean, you just don't bring anybody randomly. You really think it through. You know who's going to come in and what you're going to discuss well in advance, and the topics are so fascinating. I mean, and you brought in some really interesting people who've done some great things. Somebody who's bicycled around the world, right? Maybe even canoed, whatever he did. It's just that was an incredible, human interest story. And I just love that particular podcast. And I just love the work that you do. You're a real mensch, and you bring out the best in people, and you want to show the world that there's so much goodness out there, and let's focus on that and not the bad stuff. But some people have to focus on the bad stuff so we can learn from it, right?
Right.
Yeah. So how did I come up with the name hmTv? Well, first of all, we are in the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center, which is HMTC.
Right.
So I said...
So HM, so you're looking for another HM?
Right, an HMT. So I said, oh, hmTV. Oh my God, the T is in the right place, so I can just interchange the C with a V.
Okay.
Right? So I just changed the C to the V, so it's hmTV instead of hmTC, but I changed the name completely from the Holocaust Memorial to Humanity Matters. Because everybody in every walk of life wants recognition and to be respected, right? But really, we have to just backpedal a little bit and look at the bigger picture, that we are talking about humanity here. We are all one big family. End of story, right? We all have our own interests and cultures, and it's all wonderful. And these are the spokes of humanity that create the wheel of life. But the whole wheel is humanity. And so if we just step back a little bit and see the bigger picture, and that's really the point of this, is to talk about specific events in the world. And I have a list of various topics. I can't believe that we talked about all these things, quite honestly. I did a search through, I combed through all of the podcasts to see what was the point of that particular podcast. And so there's a long list of things that we attempted to achieve. So I'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, I want to hear. I want to definitely hear.
So it's quite a breadth of topics here. We've had Holocaust survivor testimony. In fact, one of our podcasters is a Holocaust survivor, Sammy Steigman.
Okay.
So he has his own podcast. He and Karen Balin do a podcast here, and they talk about children of the world, and how we should be protecting them more, and children of the Holocaust, children of other genocides, things like that. We've had children of survivors. We talk about Jewish memory, anti-Semitism, Israel advocacy, October 7th, IDF service, war and morality, genocide education, upstander behavior, bullying prevention, interfaith dialogue, Muslim-Jewish relations, UN and global society, education reform, student leadership, family legacy, documentary films, music is healing, the arts, trauma, resilience, philanthropy, nonprofit leadership, women's voices, community service, personal reinvention, moral courage, faith, identity, tolerance, human dignity, and everyday heroism. This is not just a narrow podcast library, obviously. It's a civic education archive. That's what this is. So we cover all the bases. And it's not something that I had planned. It's just, when you put a seed in the ground and you just put water, you don't know exactly what kind of a flower or what kind of a flower bed you're going to have. And then you're pleasantly surprised to see that it's a beautiful bouquet. And that's what this turned out to be, a beautiful bouquet of wisdom, insight, and really great people that we feel like we're all family of this platform.
Well, big mazel tov. on
Thank
putting
you.
this all together. I'm being a beneficiary, and I know all my listeners being a beneficiary. I'm writing a book called Habits of a Whole Heart, which is the same name as my podcast. And this podcast, these 47 episodes, have given me the chance to really develop the themes of the book. And what I hear, the commonality with the overall series is a common thread, which is most people are living very small lives, meaning they're very focused on themselves, their basic existence, finding pleasure, avoiding pain. And with social media, we've become much more self-absorbed, and there's much less relationship. People, the less marriage. There's less people wanting to bring kids into this world, and it's becoming tighter and tighter. And my book really says that in order to live the most meaningful and impactful life that we're pre-wired to want to do, as one of my podcast guests, as much as the baby wants the milk, the cow wants to give the milk, there's a part of us that wants to really expand in the world, and that is to have a bigger world. And every one of these is thinking about something other than themselves. It's thinking about children. It's thinking about suffering in other parts of the world. It's thinking about how to leadership, education, something outside of me to something bigger than me. And when we connect to that something bigger than me, that's what really brings in incredible meaning, purpose, and impact. What do you think of that?
Beautifully said. And that's the truth. It's exactly what we're trying to accomplish here. And it really is a microcosm of the philosophy of the museum that we're inside. Okay, in the body of this museum, we are communicating to the world. So even though this museum is kind of isolated here on the North Shore of Long Island, and we get hundreds of students coming through a week, it was my intention to expand the reach, the market reach, beyond the walls of this museum into various markets around the country and get our message out there. Because it's a very powerful message. And a lot of people have the same message. It's just what technology are you using, and what platforms are best to achieve this. Apparently, podcasts are very popular right now. Mm-hmm. And people like to listen to podcasts while they're in bed, while they're driving to work, in the morning, while they're having their cup of coffee. And it seems to be working because people want to hear it. A podcast is different than a scripted production. It's not scripted. It's a conversation. And it all started from reality TV. People want to eavesdrop. They want to be a fly on the wall on a set of a reality TV show in somebody's home. This is supposed to emulate or simulate, right, a coffee conversation between you and I about a particular topic, and what can we do to solve this problem that we have with society. But I feel very hopeful with society because societies have come and gone. Civilizations have come and gone. Civilizations were good, they turned bad, they were replaced. Sometimes they swung the other way. The pendulum always swings back and forth. That's the yin-yang of the universe. So the Israeli national anthem, Hatikva, is all about hope. Never give up hope, because if you do, you lose. You can never give up hope. The fact that the Jews were so resilient during the Holocaust is based on the fact that they were so hopeful. Even my father, who lived in a forest, was hopeful every single day that he'll survive another day. And that kind of hope really leads to some great things in the world when people begin to appreciate that kind of resilience and pride and love for family, love for people, love for the world, and appreciation, respect for this world. It's a beautiful world we live in. It really is. We have to get out of our little minds, like you said, our little lives, and see the bigger picture. We really are floating on a tiny pebble in the middle of this vast cosmos, in the middle of nowhere. And this is the best that we can do. We can do a lot better, at least today. We can do a lot better for tomorrow, for the kids.
So I really hear you inspiring. You talk about humanity matters. I was thinking, what's the opposite? the opposite of humanity matters is that nothing matters.
Well, nothing matters.
Or people don't matter.
Apathy.
Only I matter.
Apathy.
And here I see two things with the podcast that's a little different than reality. Reality TV is a form of escape. You're jumping into someone else's life. They're there. I'm here.
Right.
This is not impacting me. I'm going to laugh a little bit.
That's true.
And I'll go through the drama but it's not changing me. And I often talk about how most of us are like rocks in the river. The water flows over, but it's not changing the rock, at least not for hundreds of years.
Right. Not observable.
And what we need to become is a sponge. So instead of the water running over, it's absorb something so that we transform. And a sponge, when it absorbs water, gets bigger. And when you get bigger, the sponge is really doing its job, which is absorbing water. So I see your podcast series, all the podcasts, as not just entertaining people, but inspiring people to be their bigger self. And not only that, but also we see a lot of the people in your audience, you're preaching to the choir. You already have people who already get it. And what I see for myself is that even though I get it, this strengthens me, it reminds me, it develops me further. So you're living at a very high level. I may be living at a high level, but we come together, we push ourselves even a little bit higher.
Absolutely. That's the whole point. Sometimes the rock or the sponge can be in a stream that has, or promulgates hatred and, divisiveness. And so they absorb that, you see. We have to be in the right river. We got to find the right stream, basically. And people have to understand the differences between right and wrong. I think this world is upside down. What was right before is now wrong to some people. And what was wrong before to some people is now right, now it's okay to do these things. We have to kind of get back to basics about, morality. Now, getting back to your particular podcast series, which is a fabulous series. I'm so proud of the work that you do here. I will never discourage you. I will only encourage you to continue doing what you're doing because you're impacting thousands and thousands of lives. You don't even know how you're impacting them. The ripple effect is very powerful. But I just want you to know that I recognized it almost immediately because we had an awards evening in this past September. It wasn't a full year yet, but I saw right away who was killing it. You know what I'm saying? And you were with the work that you were doing. And you received the Moral Compass Award. What did that feel like to you? And what did you realize when you received that award? Well,
I had been seriously questioning whether this was worth the time and energy. You talk about we're in the middle of nowhere here. Right. It's 35 minutes each way for me to get here. A busy life, takes a lot of time, a lot of energy. And getting that award, I realized that people are noticing it. Yep. It's really making an impact. And it's bringing a really important message. And it's, of course, being broadcast, as you said, throughout the world. So it was a real affirmation and reminded me to keep going.
You are one of the powerhouses here. So you're talking about the stream and the sponge and that metaphor, but you're one of the streams that's providing really great content and people are absorbing it. So you're making people bigger in many ways, in more ways than one. So I thank you for that.
Thank you. What I'm trying to do is not so much be the stream as be the person who's pounding the rock for it to become more like a sponge and get people to open up to what's available to them and that they matter. We're living in a crisis of mattering. It's been going on for decades where people feel like they don't make a difference. It's very tragic, especially when you see children. They feel like they don't matter. Older people feel like they don't matter. And we all matter. We just have to figure out in what way we're making a difference. And that is, the humanity matters. We matter. We're part of humanity. And someone needs us.
Absolutely. I want to just mention something about the first podcast episode that we did here. I think it was February of 2025. And we had a very special guest. It was hosted by Alan Mindell. his podcast series is called Influential Origins, and he had Johnny Daniels as his first guest. And he's very well known, Johnny Daniels. And Johnny Daniels, first thing he said, which reaffirmed that we're on the right path. I mean, right away, immediately, he says, this is the best title you can have for this kind of a podcast in this center. He was so moved by this studio that he had his own series for a short period of time, but we have some podcast episodes with him running it. But he spoke about the powerful conversation. He had powerful conversations about family, resilience, and identity, and that drew a lot of attention. That particular podcast, the first one, and it had a lot of views. So I realized we're on the right path, and I had no idea that we're going to be doing over 500 podcast episodes in a period of a year. And you hit that milestone when we hit 500. Your podcast episode hit the 500th milestone. Do you remember that podcast?
I do.
What was that one about?
I do.
Let's see what the symbolism is of that particular podcast.
I'm trying to remember which one was 500. Was it the one with Dr. Fuster?
I think it was.
Yeah, it was Dr. Valentin Fuster, who is a world-renowned cardiologist and who's the Mount Sinai Heart Hospital has been renamed the Fuster Heart Hospital. And he was my cardiologist, an absolute giant in the field, and so famous that Sesame Street created a character after him, Dr. Rooster. And he's profoundly and deeply committed to heart health and beyond throughout the world. He's very active in Africa and Middle East and Asia, and of course at Mount Sinai in New York. And it was a very special podcast to have him on the episode.
The symbolism here is that it's, first of all, heartwarming, and we have a lot of heart with this platform. And that's basically what it is. It's a heart for humanity. It's a love of humanity.
And I realized my podcast is Habits of a Whole Heart. And there I had Dr. Fuster.
There you go. Full circle.
Other thing, something he said that really jumped out at me. He's this most written thousands of articles, lectured, I mean, truly world famous. And he's 83 years old. He works every day, gets to the office at 5 a.m, and he just sits quietly. And he thinks about, what does it mean to be a human being? And his dedication to just stilling and focusing at the beginning and bringing a service mindset to everyone he's teaching, his patients that he takes care of, and his commitment to every day bring something valuable is quite extraordinary.
That was a fabulous. You did more than one episode with him.
Just one so far.
Oh, just one? Okay, I thought it was two.
Another real interesting one is we had Esau and Jonathan, two Ugandan Jews from eastern Uganda, who talked about what it was like to be Jewish in a small village in eastern Uganda.
I thought when I listened to that was the best podcast that I've heard so far with those two gentlemen, because I had no idea that they're here somewhere in New Jersey, right? I remember that.
Yeah, Princeton.
Yeah. That was such a fascinating discussion. I just had no idea that we can reach people like this. I didn't even know that they existed, quite honestly. So you bring that to the podcast platform and then you share it with the world. Great work.
Thank you so much, Bernie. Bernie, you are a gift. This is your 4th appearance on Habits of a Whole Heart.
Thank you. Wow.
And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. It is, fellow travelers who really are looking to make a difference and who, it's not a burden. What we've learned and what we've hopefully manifesting for people is that by thinking about others and figuring out where you're needed is not a burden. It's a gift. It's a gift because it gives us a sense of fullness and knowing that we're being used by God in the most beautiful way possible. So thank you for being on this podcast. I know you're going to be traveling shortly, and I'm sending you all my best for continued success. As we say, hatzlacha for both of us, that the podcast should continue and to have a positive impact on the world and our listeners. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Habits of a Whole Heart on the Humanity Matters podcast series. This series is on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all the major outlets. And as Bernie said, we are approaching somewhere between 750,000 to 1 million views a year right now, and looking to double, triple, quadruple that. Please tune in, share this great message with your friends, and looking forward to seeing you for our next episode. Thank you very much.